Good evening and welcome to the April 14th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting, and I'll call the meeting to order. Luke, if you'll give us the roll.
Clark Gruber.
Here.
Larry Heinig.
Here.
Todd Heinrich.
Here.
Michael Neese.
Here.
Amy Nichols.
Here.
Lige Hanny.
Here.
George Sleeper.
Here.
Janice Varney.
Here.
Tim Stegman.
Here. Next up, we'll have the approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to approve the agenda. Any other discussion?
Yes, as I mentioned to you via email, I'd like to add a discussion about the Open Meetings Act and how we might communicate online.
Okay, so you're making a motion to
8A?
amend the agenda to include item 8A,
Yes.
which is Open Meetings Act discussion. Is there support?
I support.
It's been moved and supported. Any other discussion on the amendment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Amendment carries. Is there any discussion on the full motion?
I didn't think I could second that one for you, but okay. No, we're good.
Okay, no discussion? All right. All in favor of the motion as amended?
Say aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next up, we have the approval of the meeting minutes for the March 3rd regular meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the March 3rd regular meeting minutes.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to approve the meeting minutes of March 3rd. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Next up, public comment. Citizens in the audience may address the Planning Commission regarding any topic not on the agenda. Does anybody wishes to address the Planning Commission? State your name, address, and you'll have 5 minutes.
Mary Hasley, 726 North Shore Drive. Your comment may have resolved it. The agenda actually says on any topic, but you said on any non-agenda topic. So does that mean we will be allowed to speak on each of the items listed?
Yes.
And number 8 is actually a public hearing, correct? Because it's not identified as that, but I thought it was official public hearing.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. On to old business, food truck ordinance discussion. Who on staff's gonna start us out on that? Who?
I can do that.
Nick? Okay.
Yes. So we discussed the food truck ordinance at last meeting as well as quite a few meetings before now. I believe this might be the 4th or 5th meeting. In response to comments from the last meeting, we've put together a new draft that incorporates the Planning Commission's feedback, as well as a actual text of a zoning ordinance. Up to this point, we've been talking about the zoning ordinance kind of in more general terms with some proposed language at the last meeting, but we've now gone ahead and put that into draft form. The staff report has I guess I'll start with the regulatory code. I think those changes are fairly straightforward, and there's only a few of them. We've slightly modified the definition of mobile food vending unit to clarify that off-site kitchens do not fall within that. So if they're not actually serving food out of it, it's not a food truck. We've added language saying City Council can designate locations on public property either by application or by its own initiative. There were some questions about that at the last meeting. And then just made a minor change about the private event private event regulations, saying that the windows have to be oriented towards the residents on the property. There was some question about the prior language in the prior draft. The zoning ordinance, I've briefly summarized in the staff report as well. We have, at the Planning Commission's request, upped the 1 truck allowance to 2 trucks. depending on lot size. In the B1, and we've made that provision apply to the B1, B2, B3, B4, I1, I1B, and I2 districts as of now. Again, that's based on Planning Commission feedback. Staff would appreciate discussion on those provisions, whether the Planning Commission is comfortable with food trucks potentially being allowed in all of those districts. And if so, if the Planning Commission has input on how large a parking lot would need to be in order to have 2 food trucks versus 1 food truck. That's currently just a blank in the ordinance. We have written the provision for food trucks as in residential districts on institutional use parcels. That was discussed at the last meeting. That's included in this draft. We've included the Planning Commission recommendation for food trucks being allowed in the CBD district in conjunction with restaurant, bar, or brewery uses. And the language includes a 5-foot setback from property lines as opposed to a 15-foot setback, given the small size of CBD parcels. And we also left a blank to potentially limit the number of times per week that a parcel in the CBD could have a food truck if the Planning Commission thinks that's appropriate to have that type of limitation. And then finally, we have taken the draft ordinance that was provided to the Planning Commission last meeting regarding food truck parks and have kind of fit that language into the language for city special uses in the city zoning ordinance, and have kind of listed the main features of those special use requirements as they would apply to a food truck park use, and currently have the ordinance written to where that use would only be allowed in the CBD district, although we're open to feedback from the Planning Commission on other districts where that use could potentially be appropriate. And we're contemplating that would be by special use permit as opposed to by right. So that's a very high-level summary of the ordinance. I'm happy to answer any questions that the Planning Commission has.
Okay, for clarification, you're looking for 1 item in the regulatory code and 3 in the zoning ordinance? There's specific discussions as the bold print?
Right, the
Correct.
bold print were the ones where there's blanks in the ordinance that we'd like discussion to
Okay.
help fill in.
So that's how I'll guide this, but prior to that, if you would, I'd like you to explain bullet point, which one is it? Page 8, the last bullet point, where it says food truck parks are allowed in the CBD by special, no, the one above it. 1 food truck is allowed by right in the CBD district. Where is that language coming from?
Section number in the ordinance?
It's bullet point, the 3rd bullet point on page 8.
Where's it coming from in terms of where is it in the ordinance?
Yeah,
I'll have to look. Let's see.
I'm just not familiar with that one, so that one stuck out to me.
Yeah, I think that's one of the new,
Yeah, that was a new, that was not in the staff report for the last meeting. That was based on public comment. That was by Planning Commission comment at the last meeting. So it was added.
So that's an ad? That's
Yes.
not a, okay,
Correct.
understood. All right. So first one, we'll go with the regulatory code, talking about the 10 PM versus 8 PM. Anybody want to speak on that?
I guess I was okay, I was leaning toward 10 PM on that.
I would think towards 10 PM as well.
Yeah, I think the 8 PM came up based on practices of other cities, and that's a different situation, and I talked about 8 PM at one point, but I'm comfortable with 10.
Considering in the summer that, the sun doesn't really even set before most of 10 PM, I think that 10 PM is reasonable and acceptable.
I would agree.
Yeah, I was wondering, and because this is now a year-round license, or permitted use. In the winter, it gets dark earlier, and with daylight savings time potentially changing. Could we say 10 o'clock or 1 hour, 1/2 hour after dusk or after sunset, something like that? That's what,
We
it's,
could,
it's used
but-
in parks. That
Right.
sort of language is used in parks.
Whatever you guys want to do.
Is there a need to do that? I mean, if I were a food truck operator, I wouldn't be out there after dark.
Well, I
Let-
just, our
Nor,
camper
nor would most of my customers, I wouldn't think, so.
lights are not permitted, is that right? So that is
It'll take-
pointing away from the truck.
It'll take care of itself, I would think.
You're right. Okay. 10 o'clock?
Okay, so it seems like 10 o'clock is a reasonable expectation.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
I believe so. Yep.
All right. Did you mark that one down, Nick?
Yep.
Okay. On to zoning ordinance. Parking lot size for multiple trucks. 5-foot setbacks are required in the business districts, and 15-foot setbacks are required in industrial districts.
I guess my thought is, as long as two trucks can handle the setbacks, I don't have a problem with them setting up next to each other. I mean, that wouldn't, I guess I wouldn't see that being an issue. You know, obviously, they're going to have to work with whoever the owners are of the B1, B2, B3, B4, or industrial setting. So if they, as long as they can meet the setbacks, both of them, I don't have a problem with them being next to each other, as long as they work that out with the other truck and the person giving them permission to be there.
I tried to visualize spacing, and I could come up with an appropriate space for a food truck to work, but then you've also got to deal with the size of the parking lot and the amount of parking that's there for the facility that's being used. And that looked to me like that'd be a difficult thing to quantify into an ordinance. So I tend to think the way you are, Clark, is as long as it's agreeable between the owner of the property and the food truck person, I think we ought to leave it up to them to work it out rather than try to quantify something that looks very difficult to do.
So what are you saying, limits one truck or unlimited?
I think we're limiting to two now, aren't we?
Two.
Yeah, the current language is 2, and the
Yeah.
question is whether to have a minimum parking lot size to go from 1 to 2.
My question was, I wonder if staff had any recommendations in this area. I mean, I did a calculation and I came up with a number, but I was wondering if anyone on staff had come up with any ideas on that.
We don't. Largely, the items brought before you all, staff reviewed them and really are bringing them back to you all because we don't have a strong recommendation on them. A lot of these we ultimately kind of broke down to being value-based decisions, and hence really looking for some input from you all. I mean, that's really the best we have on some of these this evening.
I think if you're looking for a recommendation, that would be something that we could work on. If that's something we're hearing that you would like to see, that's something we can do. But again, that was an area where we were looking for input.
What would our recommendation look like? So many square feet above and beyond the required parking for the facility?
See, I think one of the differences is a lot of our preliminary discussions were based on models in other areas. We weren't talking about food trucks in private lots. We were talking about food trucks on streets. Larry, if I understood where you're going, I'm kind of with Larry, that if the owner of the private property can make that determination how many food trucks they want, they're up to 2. That's their business. We're not impeding any public access. We're not, it's their use of their property. So I don't understand why we would want to quantify to a parcel owner a strict requirement on the size. I mean, would we do the same thing to how many autos you can put on a for sale lot? Would we do the same thing? Yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me. It seems like we're over codifying something that we don't need to since it's a private lot.
So then if what you're saying on the example wording, like on page 26, I guess, where they have the blanks there, we would just not have any, it would just basically be as long as you meet the setbacks, you can put food trucks on there, basically no matter what size parking lot you have.
I would think as long as the setbacks fit for, Muffler Man or the old Family Video, those are two different size lots. Could both accommodate to, some of it's going to be a lot of walking traffic. So parking's probably already taken care of. You've got to find parking somewhere else, not necessarily on site for a food truck. I mean, that's kind of one of the benefits there. That's like going to Clementine's. You're not going to park on Clementine's, but it's part of the central business district, so we just have a spot somewhere, or you're walking. So I would think that would work. Hopefully then it's just easier for staff too, and you got to make that.
Anything else right now on this one? I'll leave that one as still a question mark.
I do have a question on the institutional lots that we have for residential. I couldn't tell, is the setbacks 50 feet?
It's not supposed
If
to
I
be.
pronounce that, or did I pronounce that the wrong way?
Is there just a typo in the staff?
Typo? Is it an N, 15?
It's supposed to be 15.
Oh, man, it looks like 50, though. It could.
That would be very large.
Okay.
It's a very large set.
There's a lot of non-traditional name spelling out there, I just figured.
I think he's picking on you.
For what it's worth, we did have a conversation as staff about setbacks, particularly regarding are these setbacks appropriate, recognizing that we have a lot of business lots that aren't particularly large. And if we're setting setbacks to be, let's say, again, 15 feet in the central business district, you're probably actually preventing a lot of those businesses from having access to this. So there was some intentionality behind the different setbacks for different zoning districts. Hence, industrial properties tend to be much larger. Business can be can vary quite widely.
And I've been to multiple establishments very similar to the brewery downtown, Harbor Light or Holland, New Holland, in which they do have guest food come in the form of so those are two establishments that I thought would be prime for something along these lines to go, if they wanted to do, Food Fridays in the fall or, something along those lines. And I haven't trademarked that yet, so.
All right, let's move on to the third bullet point, page 8. One food truck is allowed by right in the CBD district as an accessory use on lots on which the principal use is a restaurant, bar, or brewery. 5-foot setbacks are required, and staff contemplates that there will be a limit on the amount of time per week or per month that the food truck could be in operation. Do you think there should be a limitation, and what length of time would be appropriate?
Again, just going back from memory, I think we're conflating a couple different situations here. When we were talking about the model that other areas that we looked at used, it was when the city was granting the permits, and since the city was granting the permits, they were time-bound to a certain period of time. You get to permit for a week, you get to permit for 30 days. This is different, I think. This is not the city permitting the space. Is this back to the property owner? You guys have to help me what we were talking here.
I agree. It's kind of getting convoluted between if we were talking about public spaces or
Right.
private spaces.
Right.
So
The public spaces was based on an equity thing that you didn't give one food truck the entire city for, if you're going to have 6 permits, you don't give it to one food truck to do it all summer. You're allowing people to be able to bid on the permit,
And if we took a location like the station,
right?
and they decided we're not going to fire up our kitchen this summer, but we're going to bring in a food truck, and they've got a bar there, I mean, I'm not sure
It's a good example.
what would actually prevent them from doing that anyways. If we've got any ordinance that would prevent a private company to say, well, this is how we provide food. I don't know.
So that was part of the thinking of why we clarified the definition of food trucks, so that off-site kitchens are not included within them. So even if this CBD provision were to get struck, our position would be as long as the county health department would allow an off-site kitchen in the parking lot, that would not be prohibited by city ordinance. You wouldn't even need a food truck license for that, assuming that they're taking the food prepared outside and serving it inside, not serving it from a window on the truck.
There we go. And thank you for that clarification.
So limits or no limits?
Well, I look at it from the customer's side. We have people come into town on a daily basis, some on a weekly basis, but there are people here all around the entire calendar that want to eat. They would want a food truck most of the week, not just Mondays and Wednesdays. So why don't we provide that service?
I kind of agree with you, Larry, that I think the market dictates what's going to be, go ahead, do it on a Monday when it's snowing and see what your customers are, and you may not do that again the next Monday. You may say, no, I'm not doing that. I think the market will dictate that, so I don't think we need to put those limits on there.
I think so, too.
I agree.
Concur.
Okay, let's move to the last one. What are we talking about? B2, B4? Limitations? Any comment on that?
Again, I just go back to my same comment. The limitation on the amount of time given within a given period they could operate on a parcel. The original model we were talking about is if it was going to be on a city street or city-owned property where it's granted a permit, that's one thing. But if we're talking on private property, I don't see how we could limit it to 2 weeks. I mean, I can think of different scenarios in town. For instance, if the congregation decided to put a food truck in their lot, I can pretty much guarantee who's going to be the vendor of that food truck. As opposed to, if, I don't know, pick any other business property that they may want to have variety. But I think it's their choice, as long as it's on private property, and again, not requiring the city to permit it.
Nothing? Okay. Anyone else on this end?
My only question is, do we need to put in adding permission of the establishment to do this, or is that just a given if somebody owns an establishment downtown?
I believe that is in the ordinance. I would recommend that be in the ordinance if it's not, but I'm going to quickly scan through here. I'm pretty sure that's in the city code.
Thanks.
Yeah, I guess I read that into it. It says which limits operations on private parcels in B2 to B4. I would assume if it's a private parcel that there would be permission given to have it on there.
I was thinking of the business establishments. Is that the same? Okay.
It's in here. It's in 1468 of the regulatory code. It says further, mobile food vendors shall not operate on private property without first obtaining written consent from the owner of the property on which the vendor proposes to
And I
operate.
did read that, but I hadn't translated into this, so thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, we're through the staff questions. Were there any other comments or points of interest before I open it up for public comment?
I did have some questions on some of the red line changes in the document. Are we moving to that, Tim, or you want to hold off?
Hold off on that.
So, yeah, so one of the questions I had, so in both the regulatory section and the zoning ordinance amendment, we have, both sections have definitions, but there's an extra definition in the zoning ordinance. And I was just wondering, why would we duplicate those and have an extra one in the zoning ordinance?
So the zoning definition is mobile food vending park, and that term just doesn't appear in the city code. So that was the reason for that. We could, I mean, it's not uncommon to have duplicative definitions in the two ordinances. They're technically separate. We could have them refer to, like, as used in the zoning we could define the terms of the city ordinance to say as defined the zoning ordinance. That's not typically how it's done with other duplicative definitions, but anyway, that, and the reasoning why we have the one and not the other, that term just not used, and it would be kind of extraneous to be in the city code.
Okay. I also had a question on 1468A. It talks about, as of the effective date of this section, such locations include lots in the B2 and B4 zoning districts, as well as lots occupied by non-residential use. Just wondering why we would, to me, that was confusing because it almost implies that it's just B2 and B4, and I wonder if that's a holdover from the old.
It is. I just noticed that as well and took a note of it. So I'll update that based on whatever the planning commission decides for the zoning districts for the zoning ordinance.
I would think you just
List them
eliminate
all.
that whole
Mm-hmm.
part there. And then the last comment I had, it's on where it talks about mobile food vending parks. It talks about temporary structures such as tents shall be prohibited. And I guess I wasn't sure what that meant, because I think a lot of stuff that we're talking about in a mobile food vending part is temporary. And like if they have just like a canopy over the seating or the eating area or something like that, I would think that would be okay. I'm just not sure what is meant by not allowing temporary structures.
So that was taken from the model ordinance that we had provided in the last packet. My reading of that would not preclude canopies. A lot of the examples I've seen of food trucks do have canopies. We wouldn't necessarily consider that a structure. I think the intent there is probably porta potties or the big thing that's intended to get at. And I'm not sure what else that's designed for. But if that's something the planning commission doesn't, I think the intent of that section overall is to encourage permanent structures, a permanent restroom building, as opposed to something more temporary, to encourage investment in the site. But if we don't think we need that specific prohibition, we could certainly remove it.
Would there be a canopy attached to the truck or a separate structure?
Well, I could see it being either one, I guess, but I just don't want to get into an issue with trying to interpret this if somebody wants to put something in, and obviously most things in a food truck park are temporary because it can be, everything's on wheels mostly. And so I just don't want there to be confusion as to what temporary is allowed and what temporary is not allowed. Does that make sense?
Let me pose the question, I guess, to the planning commission then. If we pictured a food truck park and the operator or owner of that food truck park wanted to put like a big white wedding tent up. Would that be appropriate?
And let's add one thing to that. It's today with the high wind advisory.
Or the other side of it's the middle of the summer and it's raining out and they have that to still encourage people to come out to their outdoor area. Not my choice, but I think when I read through this again today and read temporary structures and tents, that's what I thought of is the real large wedding or event tents, and pictured that over a big parking lot. Is that what we're thinking of?
No.
It's not so mobile at that point, is it?
Well, and that's, again, I read the packet, and my line of sight was based on what we had already covered. So when I read this thing about the food parks, I'm thinking about what we discussed, which is hardly a temporary situation. It isn't just a piece of land out there that we're going to allow 5 trucks and call it a food truck park. It's going to be a designated area that we determine is our food truck park, such as the proposal that was being talked about by the young man that came in and talked about it. If you think about that structure by Dairy Queen that he showed us the overlays for and the pictures, that's what was going through my mind. So those weren't, to me, that was hardly a temporary lot, a temporary situation. There was
I think that was our understanding as well, which is why why that language didn't catch our eye when we took it from the sample ordinance. But if that's something that the Planning Commission feels differently about, please let us know, and we're happy to update the language from there.
Okay.
Well, I'm just thinking of like the igloos that sometimes you see, and, that could be considered, and it is temporary because they might take it down in the summer but leave it up in the wintertime. So this would tell me, no, you can't do that, and it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, we didn't exactly let yurts be built, so I think temporary tents, probably not. All right, anything else right now?
Oh, I did have one more thing, sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry, George.
Also on food truck parks, it talks about at least one electrical outlet shall be required at each designated mobile food vending location. And I think that might be overly restrictive. I think as long as you say you have adequate electrical supply for the food trucks, because having an outlet at each vending location could be a lot of unnecessary construction, I think.
That's true. Some of them might not need it. I don't know the specifics of how those operate. So we can change that.
Well, I'd imagine the purpose of that is so you don't have tiny extension cords running all over the place.
I think so.
On
When
the
they come
same-
in with a proposal, they can probably speak better to what food truck needs are and whether some use it and some don't. My guess is that's the case.
They're supposed to be self-supporting, are they not?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think actually in order, the health department inspection requires some of that anyway, so it's kind of a moot point for us to add it on.
On that same page that George is, it says the hours of operation for the mobile food vending unit shall be limited to 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Did we mean 7 a.m.? I mean, that seems a little early to me.
I think what we talked about was, and again, it depends on what our scenario we had in mind was for food trucks. We thought about food trucks like Grand Rapids does, like other cities are doing, where they specify, here's breakfast time, here's lunchtime, here's dinner time.
Okay.
So breakfast was for like 7 to 10 they were allowed to serve, 11 to 1, and then it was like 6 to 8. So, but we're not going down that same route, so I don't know.
And I think our construction hours are 7 a.m., right?
Yes, that's when they begin. I think when we were coming up with that language, we were trying to be respectful that as written, a food truck park would be in the central business district, so what would be consistent with the operation of most other businesses in the central business
I
district?
think that's fair.
Recognizing, as some comments have been made, I mean, the market's likely going to drive some of that as well. If you're a lunch or a dinner food truck, you're likely not opening at 7 a.m. I guess I can't say that for certain, but I don't know. You all seem to be very familiar with some of the diversity of food trucks. I mean, I could have a donut truck or a breakfast truck or a crepe truck or coffee truck. I guess you could, theoretically, think of a business that may operate in the morning.
Yeah, again, I think the market's going to have a lot to do with that. If I can't see a donut truck, but yeah. As long as we're on this page, Tim, I may as well get my point out now. I do have a question, section 1468, item B. Do I read that language to say that council will still be able to grant the use of a mobile food truck by resolution?
Yes. So
that's
this is just to clarify that they can either, like we talked about, they can do kind of an omnibus resolution that says these are all the spaces that you can be at, or an applicant who wants a particular space can come before the council, though we'll have some type of application form or process, and they can do it on a case-by-case basis.
So a food truck, if I read this correctly, a food truck provider could make their interest known and ask the city for the right to do that, and that could be granted by resolution.
Yes.
And that's on public property.
Yes.
Anything else? And this is amazing. It's more from trying to provide 365 days of operation in areas that was already allowed to a lot more. So that's interesting. All right, so public comment. Does anybody wishes to talk on this item? Come up, state your name, address, you have 5 minutes.
Mary Hasley, 726 North Shore Drive. So the definitions, I think, have some vagueness in them. For the mobile food vending
Mary,
unit.
if you bring the mic down just a touch.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Thank you. The mobile food vending unit ends with, it will include other types of mobile vendors. So I'm not sure what that means, mobile vendors without the food vending qualification. And also, when you look at the operation, operation includes hours of operation, not necessarily setup or takedown. So if you look at those combined, is that affecting ice cream trucks, which cannot operate on public streets? So I would think that that would exclude ice cream trucks from our town. I don't know if that was intended or not, but that's how I read those. I know the resolution for the Fruit Street Kitchen was 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. I am concerned with the 10 p.m. Now, if it would be nice to know when construction ends, what time that ends, and I would encourage you to have the food truck shut up and leave by the end of the time period. The cleanup and shutdown can add noise, and if it's, we're trying to get residents to live down in the CBD, and the residents are going to be working. They're not here vacationing. They're not necessarily staying up late on Sundays through Thursdays because they have to get up for work Mondays through Fridays. So that needs to be taken into consideration. With regard to the park, food truck park, what areas currently now would qualify? That would be nice to know. I know that the Dairy Queen site was identified, so the permanent fence or buffer that is being required would not apply because I don't think it would be near residential. But it would be nice to have that clarified. Where could it even optionally go? That might help identify other issues to bring up. And for the residents, for it adjoining residential district, for the buffering requirements that are a 6-foot high wall fence, a wall fence or dense vegetation strip. It would be nice to know that it's all residential districts or just certain residential districts. It's not qualified, but it says A, it doesn't say any. And RM1, that would be nice to know. There was that. With regard to the setbacks, I appreciate different setbacks for different areas, but I think like the 5-foot setback may prohibit use of the lot for the Dairy Queen. And it seems like the setback should take into consideration what effect it would have on the adjoining property. So that is adjoining to City Hall, which is empty. It has a huge strip of land, so you potentially could decrease the setback, and that would not impede the adjoining land, but may make it possible for them to actually have a food truck. That lot's pretty small. So with the different requirements, when you look at it as a whole, it may make it impossible to even have a food truck parked there. Trying to be environmental and not print out so many pages. Yeah, I do not like the 10 p.m. I would like clarification that they have to be shut up and leave by then. And that's it for now. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Jim Sankowski, 89 North Shore Drive, Bundy's Bakery. And I think you know why I'm here. I just want to just say I've been over there for a long time, and the shoulder seasons keep getting smaller for us. And we got to make our money in July and August. At the end of the summer, my wife and I look at it and say, are we going to make it another year? Or are we going to have to go out and get jobs? We do that. We've done that the last 5 years. With the shoulder season getting smaller, and you put restrictions on the north side, and we've lost all our restaurants over there, which at one time added to the business my business during the off season. So we're over there. Any more competition for Northside Memories, Bundy's Bakery? If you put a food truck just down the street, it might make that decision a lot easier, or I should say a hard decision that we will have to make in the near future. I don't mind competition. I was born to be competitive. There's 3 more coffee places opening up in South Haven. That's the way it is. They're inside brick and mortar buildings. They're not a trailer that pulls into town and then leaves. They're paying the taxes. They're paying the extra sewage. They're paying the extra trash pickup. They're paying extra water. Fair is fair, but the north side has been left out of a lot of things, a lot of the city planning, and we are limited in our abilities to expand for just about anything now. We've tried in the last 6 months to try to come up with some ideas to increase our business, because we know that the fall and spring keeps getting shorter for us. But we're not in the right location. We need to be in the central business district. So I'm just leaving it up to you guys. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Moved up a little bit. Hi, Caleb Pachaska, 89 North Shore Drive. So all we've ever asked is to be treated like every other business. Unfortunately, we're not, because the city forced rezoning of the north side into RM1 for a historically commercial district. So we don't get any of the advantages of downtown businesses. I sat with several of these members of the city at my parents' probably 3 weeks ago, trying to figure out, what can we do? How can we make the north side work? And unfortunately, this is one more thing where the city just says, well, it's the north side. So, earlier, sorry, I was late because I was actually in class and zipped over and listened to the meeting on the way over. I heard a lot of mentions of B1, 2, 3, 4, the CRD, the industrial district. We're RM1, like, are we going to be able to put a food truck there? Possibly, maybe, I don't know. I haven't heard anything about that. Is there going to be a food truck down the road that's going to take business away? Many of you, I don't know, do you come from business backgrounds? Small business, restaurants run on about a 5% margin. So that's one of those things that people go, oh, well, there's a line out the door at Bundy's in the summer. Well, there might be a line out the door for 2 weeks when you drive by, but it's a 5% margin. It's a very low margin to keep employees employed for a long stretch of the season. We're trying to figure out how to stretch that season, how to make it economical to actually be in business, and how to compete with people downtown. As Jim mentioned, there are now 7 coffee shops in South Haven. So it's a very small market, and we don't need more competition on the north side. We've chatted with Northside Memories quite a few times, and they're in a very similar situation where the north side businesses are just struggling. So, just help us out.
Hello, I'm Trevor Brooks, 429 Cherry, and I'm the guy, I'm sure you guys know, with the interest in the Dairy Queen. I appreciate your comment that I'm young.
Didn't recognize you without the hat.
That's what it was. Yes, I was wearing my jacket. I think, first of all, I appreciate the fact that you guys this conversation is evolving. The idea of a park is pretty, obviously pretty new to this city and stuff. There's a couple of things in there as like, George kind of alluded to some of them. It's like you're getting kind of technical, like, well, the requirements of plugins. I understand the rationale, like we were talking about, but if you kind of shifted it, the thought more to like safety. So I get the idea. It's like, yeah, you obviously don't want, cords running everywhere. It's because that's a safety issue. But the reality is, probably at least maybe 40% of the trucks are electric. Most of them actually are on propane. So what does that mean? Like, you got 6 trucks full of propane. You know what I mean? Like, think more from a safety perspective. And then the other things too is like with the temporary concept. Again, if you're looking at it from a safety perspective, it makes sense. It's like you don't want some big tent that theoretically could blow away in the wind. But technically you could put up a large wedding tent because those ones get driven into the ground. Oh, sorry, can't. Those the big ones get driven into the ground. Ultimately, those aren't necessarily concerns of mine because I'm looking to do a lot more than that. Porta potties, that's a good example too. It's like, I wouldn't have porta potties, but so yeah, if you think of it more from a safety perspective, I think that makes sense. And then ultimately, you do allude to sound a little bit, but again, you get specific, like, hey, you can have some music. Well, a good example of a truck, especially electric ones, they have what do you call it, like power generators, and those generators get loud. I don't know if you've ever gone to if you got 6 trucks and they all got generators, that's going to be a very loud space. So those kinds of things, again, want to consider that kind of stuff. But ultimately, I do appreciate the involvement of this conversation. The unfortunate part is bumping up against the season. So, I need to kind of get an idea. It's like, wait a sec, it's got to go through you guys, then it's got to go to the city and all this planning. The reality is this season is going to get lost. I got a feeling. I'm hoping that's not the case, but I'd like to see some kind of rationale, or not rationale, but some kind of evidence that that's not going to happen. So anyway, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we'll go back to the commission. Now, it is also possible, taking his last comment there, that he could put a plan together for a park and go to the ZBA, right, Larry?
Yeah, I suppose.
Okay.
I would imagine it probably would take several variances to make something like that work.
Might be quicker than what we're going through right now, though. So I just wanted to throw that out there. All right. Any other comments on this before we move forward? So there's some discussion, and you'll write up the changes, send those, and we can take a look at that. Hopefully, you'll send them a little earlier than the next agenda packet, so we can really get a good look at it. And
Do that.
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to make a note that we did receive several emails, which I forwarded to everyone from various community members, just regarding the food truck conversation tonight.
Okay.
Wish their comments to be made known, and you all received them in email. They are just general comments about food trucks, speaking in favor of them and one against.
How many were there?
I believe there were 9 total.
9, okay. I have not seen those yet. They all came in today?
Today, and yesterday.
All right. Okay, anything else from staff on this one? No. All right. Let's move on to new business. Item 7, Shoreline Armoring Committee update.
This evening, we are bringing both an update and a request to you regarding the established ad hoc Shoreline Armoring Committee. This is coming based on some comments. I don't remember if it was the last Planning Commission meeting, but one of the last couple meetings, there was some questions during commissioner comments at the end, kind of on the status of this. So, understanding we've been going through quite a bit of turnover recently, we were able to take a look back and see where this committee stood. Just in terms of a little bit of background, as many of you likely remember, in the beginning of 2021, the Planning Commission established an ad hoc committee on shoreline armoring, specifically intended to review existing site plan review standards that applied to shoreline armoring projects. My understanding at that time is there were some questions or concerns regarding options for establishing standards that could be put in place by the Planning Commission regarding reviewing these types of projects moving forward. This committee did meet once in September 2021. At that time, they requested staff to look for some additional information from other communities. To date, city staff has not been able to locate any useful examples of the requested information at that time. And really, since then, the Planning Commission has had a really full plate. We recognize the length and busyness of meetings that we've had recently, and we're not expecting that to change much moving forward. With that being said, city staff's also gone through a lot of changes, so this evening we're making the request that the Planning Commission consider whether or not it's a priority to continue this effort at this time. Alternatively, city staff, specifically Kelly and I, even today, are beginning to explore options for the master plan review process in 2023, and specifically forming and theming that review based on shoreline management, community sustainability, and being a coastal community based on a lot of the challenges that the community's faced over the last couple years. And at this point, we're recommending that option may not only be more time effective, but may better serve the long-term goals of this committee moving forward. So I'll leave it to you all this evening to discuss that. We're happy to do the best we can to answer any questions, but I'll summarize again. It is being recommended by staff this evening to consider dissolving or postponing the work of this ad hoc committee at this time. while city staff continue to look at other options for incorporating that discussion into future planning activities.
Okay, thank you, Griffin. So I appointed Todd, Larry, and Mike to that committee. Hear from you guys first. How do you feel about?
Now is the time to be doing something. We're not under any pressure, any specific projects in front of us. It's the appropriate time to be working on something like this. That also gives us a chance to get an ordinance in place in the public, a chance to have that ordinance in front of them for a period, hopefully, of several years before that faces us again. That being done well ahead of time, it won't surprise anybody when we start applying the new ordinance to it. So my comment is that now is the time to be working on it. But I understand staff's problem, so I'll say no more.
All right, Mike?
Yeah, Larry makes a strong argument, and I certainly recognize the work that's before this body, and I think it's going to be a very, very full year of things that we're going to be dealing with as a planning commission. But the other thing, in support of what Larry said, now may be the time because emotions are down as well. As the water falls, the level falls, we can probably trust science a little bit more maybe this time instead of how emotionally filled the last time we had this discussion it was. I don't know the status of LEA, whether they're still working with us as members of that shoreline community. I think that's worth checking into before we pull the plug.
Mike, that's who we spoke with today about starting plans for an upcoming 2023 master review process. So we are still working with LEA, but their planning works, I think, at a different level than talking about actual zoning ordinance development and implementation. And if I can, and I apologize if I'm interrupting, Larry, I think part of the comments or the conversations we've had with LEA is, you're absolutely right that we need to put changes like this and topics like this in front of the public and give them time to digest it. I think staff's recommendation at this point is the first place to do that might be the master plan, and then working to develop zoning ordinance based on that master plan.
Yeah, I recognize the master plan has to be part of what we were intending to do. Yeah.
I understand staff's limitation, resources, time, but I would like to see us continue forward. If you'd like to take a 6-month break, when hopefully the water continues to go down, the desperation that we saw in applicants' emergency applications to protect their homes, it's unpleasant, and I don't want to sit through low water years when we don't have those emotions to deal with. One of the things that I thought we should include, I felt sort of we didn't have standing. This commission actually declined a shoreline protection permit a year and a half ago, and we were overruled because we really didn't have standing. So I think really all we really have the power to do is use our master plan and maybe the application process, so when people apply for a shoreline protection permit, we can say, look, our master plan includes that the shoreline has been moving east for hundreds of thousands of years, and we expect it to continue. Continuing to put armor is just postponing the inevitable. Something to that effect, that this is a temporary structure you're building, you may need to remove it when the inevitable happens. That was why I asked to be on this commission, this subcommittee. So I guess, again, if we have limited resources, I respect that. I hope that we can pick it up again maybe in the fall. I don't know.
Okay. Anybody else on the commission have a comment on?
I agree
speaking
with the
requests?
committee. Certainly, there are things out there that we could be looking at and planning ahead. It's a planning process, of course. And Chickaming Township has an ordinance that we can look at, and Grand Haven has gone through the planning process in order to get it into the master plan. And so there's a whole set of steps that can happen prior to that. And then when the master plan is being discussed, these will already be ready to be either incorporated or discussed further, and then we'll have public input. I don't think we have time to waste. I think Larry said it very well, and we said the time is now. And so, no, I wouldn't recommend that we postpone or even say that we're not going, but say that we're going to work until wait until the master plan to do this.
George?
Well, I remember the effort that went into the last revision of the master plan. It was very significant, as I'm sure a lot of planning commission members remember. And I just, I'm worried that we're going to be trying to do too much. And I understand that some of the work from the ad hoc committee can go into the master plan, which may be beneficial, but I just want to make sure that the master plan to me is just such an important document. I'd hate to jeopardize the success of that because we're trying to do too much. But I'll support whatever the rest of the commission wants.
I think if the committee wants to continue, they can continue. I mean, they took a 6-month break already because it looked like the last meeting was September. So I understand the water's low, temperatures are low. Now's a good time to put something together. So it may take through the planning process before they get something put together. So it just may just take a while, but I don't think there's necessarily a reason to disband it at this time.
I defer to the committee members. I believe they're the ones that are going to be putting the rubber to the road, and I think we should keep the process going as much as possible. This is a great time to get some of this work done.
I, too, I'm going to defer to you guys, sorry. But I also think, yeah, you've taken 6 months off. What's a couple more months of us trying to get organized before? I'm not saying you have to meet today and solve all the issues, or tomorrow. So, take a little time with it. Might solve everybody. Might be a good way to meet in the middle of all this.
It seems to me, going back in history, we actually formed the subcommittee because we had a lot of pressing questions that we couldn't get the answers to with the whole commission.
Yeah.
So I think we can find that list of pressing questions and see if it's time to revisit them.
Okay. Well, so is there a motion to, we can do two things. One is as staff recommends, or you can do a continuance. That's a reaffirmation motion.
Do we need that? It just says a
I think
shoreline
so,
update.
since staff is requesting that it.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if
Yeah.
I can make one more comment, I want to clarify for the Planning Commission that staff also feels like this is a very important topic. I think we absolutely recognize the challenges that the high water brought onto our community over the last couple years. This is coming much more from a position of trying to recognize the capacity both of you all as volunteers on the Planning Commission and the time restraints on staff. Recognizing that we're always going to have more good projects that we want to work on than time that we have available to work on them. So recognizing from the comments this evening that this is something that Planning Commission sounds like they want to move forward with, we will reconvene as staff and see what's the most appropriate way to to support you in that. I would just also ask if the Planning Commission can recognize and support us as much as possible moving forward, that we do have capacity restraints, and if this is something that is going to be a priority, that there are likely going to be other areas that we're not going to be able to dedicate as much time in the interim.
Well, I think you do have to realize the reason the ad hoc committee was set up was so staff could take extra time, and you'd have some dedicated commissioner members to help sift through everything before it did come to the commission. And this commission has been very forthcoming with a lot of their time for special meetings, for a lot of other topics. And if this is one they feel strongly about continuing on, I would suggest we stay the course.
If I might not throw a monkey wrench in it, but there might be an interim step here. We could meet as a committee, take a look at our workload, take a look at what questions are the immediacy of addressing them now, the consequences of waiting, and come back as a subcommittee with our recommendation.
And I think there were two major items you wanted to look at, were there not?
Yes.
Yes. So.
Well, and the other issue that I remember we had is one of the things that was driving us is we're kind of the outlier on the shoreline. There's not many areas of our beach that don't already have that protection in place. Mm-hmm. So there was a sense of immediacy based on where we were on our shoreline compared to the rest of Lake Michigan.
Okay. Either way, since this is an agenda item, I need a motion in the affirmative, one way or the other.
I guess I'll make a motion to continue the Planning Commission Ad Hoc Committee on Shoreline Armoring.
I support.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right. Item 8, Harbor Club, 525 Kentucky, PUD amendment, site plan, and public hearing. Who leads us off on this tonight?
That'll be me.
Okay. Make sure you get the mic close.
So it's my understanding that the Harbor Club has been to this committee several times before for PUD amendments, and tonight we have Scott Sinar here if we would like to hear from the applicant as well. He's seeking an amendment to eliminate the townhome parking area in the northwest corner of the block that fronts Baseline Road. He would like to utilize units 1 and 2 alongside Ravine Road for townhomes and change the use type of 3 and 4. It would be most helpful probably if you look at the site plan that was submitted with your packet. 3 and 4 will be used for single-family homes. So 3 and 4 are currently permitted for multifamily dwellings, and those are the units that would go back to single-family homes.
Okay. Do you have that ready to run up there?
No, I don't. I apologize.
Okay.
I can put it up.
I ask for that quite often, so just so you know. Let's put up the appropriate page. Which one is it?
46.
46. Yes, 46. Okay, any commission questions? Con?
So I guess the one thing in the staff report where it talks about, let me find the page here, page 41.
Okay.
Is where it kind of talks about, goes through it finishes talking about the various sections in section 1404 and how they're addressed. It does not include the new sections of 1404 that were amended in July of last year for PUDs, and I would think we'd want that. It may not be applicable because the original PUD came through before these amendments, but I would think should at least be addressed that and discussed whether or not it is applicable or not, such as an environmental impact statement.
Nick?
Sure. So staff brought this to my attention shortly before the meeting, and I did take a look at it. So staff's preferred interpretation of that section as it applies to this project is that it would not apply because what's specifically being kind of brought for review is smaller than 5 acres. If you look at diagram 6 of the site plan, this is only affecting a very small portion of the PUD. I do agree that it should be addressed as part of the staff report going forward. And also, staff is likely to bring some type of amendment or discussion for the Planning Commission's discussion at a future meeting to clarify how this section applies to projects. It's not abundantly clear from the language that's in there how it applies in this context, but staff's preferred interpretation is that it does not apply and that this project can move forward without that requirement.
Anyone else? No. Does the developer wish to address the commission? Okay.
Good evening, Commissioners. Hello, Scott Seiner for Harbor Club Development. So as Kelly pointed out, the current plan that was approved about 10 years ago by the Commission was approving some attached housing. And in this area, lots 1 through 4 and 12 through 15, there were 8 approved. Through subsequent conversations we've been having with the city engineer in particular, let's say lot 17 and 18, there were some shared driveways. The city engineer is not real happy about that, just generally speaking does not like this. The main driver for being in front of you and asking for this change is our building partner, Allen Edwin Homes, has a different design for townhomes, and the townhomes that they have garages. The original plan that was approved by the commission 10 years ago had all surface parking. That was the floor plans that we had in front of us at that point, which is why, as Kelly pointed out, in the northwest corner there was parking, and then there was parking down to the left of lot 11 and also to the left or the right side of lot 5. So we're really just trying to modify the plan to conform to the plan, the plan that the builder has available to build for us right now. As pointed out, we're not asking for any increased density, and we think it lays out a little bit better, and satisfies the city engineer's, comments on other lots that, hey, you only have one curb cut servicing lot 3, and this provides more parking. But I'm available to answer any questions as well.
Anybody have any questions? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, who wants to make the next motion? Public hearing.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to open a public hearing. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Public hearing's open, and anybody wishes to speak on this item on the agenda? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and supported to close the public hearing. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Okay, next up, the motion for item 8. Might want to refer to page 43.
Just to clarify, are we recommending approval of the proposed PUD or recommending the proposed PUD amendment be approved and sent to city council.
Approve the proposed PUD with conditions to be recommended to council.
Okay, got it.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the PUD amendments for Harbor Club. Recommend that approval be sent to the city council for the proposed amendment with the following conditions, or the 5 conditions in staff report.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to, as Larry said, I'm not going to repeat it the way you said it, so I think everybody understands. Just please notice page 43, there are 2 number 1s on the conditions. It says 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? We're renumbering it as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Next up, item 8A, Open Meetings Act discussion. Todd, why don't you lead us off on that, since you made the motion?
This wasn't a public document, but it should be, I think. With Kelly's permission, I'm going to read what you communicated to us. As a quick reminder, staff has become aware of increasing online discussion regarding the city's short-term rental regulations, which were developed in large part by the Planning Commission. City attorney has advised that online activity could potentially violate the Open Meetings Act in that multiple members become a sub-quorum discussing city business. Staff would encourage planning commissioners to follow the following guidelines, which are taken from page 8 of the sample bylaws, and there's a link to an MSU extension referring to free and open debate should only take place at the commission, and that once a vote is taken and an issue is decided by vote, the duty of each member of the commission is to represent the position reflected by the outcome of the vote. Minority reports for reconsideration may take place only at an open meeting of the commission. And 3, from time to time or on a specific issue, the commission may appoint a spokesperson from the commission for all matters which occur outside of the meetings. I asked for time to talk about this. Social media is a fact of life. It is the public square, whether we like that or not. And there's a lot of negative stuff that happens on social media and has happened about short-term rentals. I know from, I'm not a good poker player, but when somebody says short-term rental in this room, our senior members in this commission kind of, yes, because the wounds are still there from the battles some years ago. So I guess I would rather than talk about short-term rentals is how do we communicate on a small town on short-term or on social media. And I'm going to embarrass my 2 old friends here. We 3 have known each other for 30 years. Our kids grew up together. We're dear friends. I think they know from past experience how I feel about short-term rentals. I don't know how they feel because we've never really talked about it. And that surprises people, that 3 people can serve. But I guess there's got to be some public trust that the city council puts in us when they appoint us to this commission, that we're going to behave professionally, without giving up my right to speech, to free speech, and to speak in the public square. If somebody puts something up on a social media platform and I like it, that's not a conflict of interest. If it's Clark or Amy or any one of you, I don't believe that violates the spirit or the intent of the Public Meetings Act. So I wanted to say that, and I wanted to hear what you all think about that. There are folks that apparently are concerned and are contacting staff. So they encouraged us to talk about it openly, and that's what I asked for this time to do.
I can tell you what I think about it. I don't use social media for anything.
You and all of my siblings, all 6 of them.
Well, I think the email said it best, which it could potentially violate. And all we're doing is getting a reminder to be careful what's said and what's not said. And I am active on social media. I typically use it to, A, provide links for individuals. If they're unclear with something like, hey, I decided to give you the link to some documentation with the city, or just to provide factual information. I try to keep a lot of opinions out, but I think it's just another great gentle reminder that we do need to be careful when we're online, because it's just like having to be careful in the donut shop when there's multiple of us talking about a topic, especially if it's a topic that is in front of us. So as a gentle reminder, I'm okay with it, and it helps me every once in a while to think about what I say online is the same thing as what I would say out in public, or if there's more than one of us in a room, and if there's more than one of us in a discussion topic, it's the same thing. Only more people see that than, because back in the day when I was on council the first time, I'm talking, way back in the olden days, that, yeah, there were a lot of council members who went to the bakery. And you would walk in and go, am I allowed to even buy a donut? Because many times 3 of them would be sitting at one table, and it was really, really close, so you got to think about that. So I think gentle reminders to think about what we do and what we don't do online is great, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I guess I'll reinforce what Clark's saying. Oddly enough, my first week on the Planning Commission, I was reminded that I couldn't have a cocktail with 2 other members of the Planning Commission to debrief how my first meeting went. And Mr. Commissioner, you may remember that. I just thought you didn't like me. Come to find out, it's part of the bylaws. So I do think it's terribly important, because I do agree with full transparency when it comes to the business of the city. I'm going to take this moment, though, to issue a bigger reminder. That applies more than just social media. One of the things that social media has taught, if you read it at all lately, I think we're at the lowest point of credibility as a city government right now. There's a lot of people think a lot of decisions are being made in back rooms with certain people having influence that other people don't have. Now, I don't believe any of that, but that's what we're facing in terms of perception. So anything we can do to play by the rules and try to protect and build our credibility, I think we ought to do. So I agree with you there, Clark. I will say, though, when I look back on my behaviors, I found it to be perfectly consistent with the training that I did receive from you all on the Open Meetings Act. I'm really careful not to be with more than 2 people from the Planning Commission, even if it's at a social event. Step back, So I'm extremely careful. But one of the things you taught me when you taught me that is I'm free to talk about anything that's not on the agenda. That's what the Open Meetings Act covers. I can't talk about issues that are currently before the Planning Commission. That doesn't take away my right as a citizen to talk about things that may come up to the Planning Commission at any given time. But I will tell you, I'll make this personal commitment to the rest of the commissioners. You've heard me say this, and I don't say this lightly because I do believe this. It's an honor to serve with you, and I don't want to do anything that would color the ability of this group to be effective as far as our credibility goes. So I will be careful.
Amen.
I will indeed be careful. One last thing on social, 2 last things on social media. I'll make this quick. Todd's right on. We can despise it. It's here. I mean, I'm an old instructor. It still bothers me when students open their laptops when I'm trying to give a speech. Hey, close that laptop. It ain't the world anymore. They're going to have their phones. That's the way it is. Times have changed. So we have to embrace social media. One of the things I'm very quick to do when I am on social media is remind people that making a comment on Facebook is not social activism. It's not community activism. You want to make a difference, you come to these meetings, you run for office, you get on the commission. Other than that, you're blowing air. Now, I don't want taken away my use of social media to be able to confront Amy every morning over our
the
Wordle score.
I know. He's killing me in the Wordle, by the way.
So duly noted, and I'll take greater care.
And I'm going to add on to that because one of my favorite sayings is just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Right.
The reason you don't know how I feel about short-term rentals is because I don't put it out there. That's not my place to put it out here now. My place is to be the greater good, to do what's right here. It's not about how I feel about something. It never is. You do know every little detail about my children, though. I'm sorry for that, and the Wordle. And you know that my husband did the Wordle at midnight last night.
Bourbon.
With bourbon, yes. And he still did better than me. So I'm thinking I got to get up at midnight now, Larry, or Michael, to beat you. But just because I agree with you, like, I think we have to be very, very cautious and very, it stinks because you want to just tell everybody how you feel. And that's what social media encourages. Everybody talk to me about how you feel. Doesn't mean it's right. It means you have to stay. Like, hey, I'm on planning commission. I don't get to say that, and I don't really want to say that in a public forum, but I would love to see your face and your butt sitting in that seat. And then next time, I'd like to see you apply for this commission to be on there. That's how you can change the way social media is. I come from a school background. We don't get to say anything you want when you're teaching. That is a fireable offense in most cases. So you have to be very cautious about it. And I would say that we should be able to be held to that kind of standard, honestly. I also would like the training that you got on the Open Meeting Act. And I would hope to have one day a book like Chairs that's all dog-eared. I do love your book because he's obviously been through it and read it and knows it backwards and forwards. And I think we all need that as a training. So.
That was going to be my question, is who on this commission did not receive that training? We didn't have it that long ago, but
me,
just the two of you, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about me on social media.
All right.
You know,
Stay up.
I think we learn much more by listening than talking. So if you use that principle, you shouldn't have a problem on Facebook or social media. You know, it's an opportunity to hear what the people in the community feel on certain subject matters, but I don't believe there's any value in us commenting. It brings us no value to the work that we're trying to do.
All right. Anything else?
Unless you're doing the Wordle.
Yeah.
Totally going to put you in the...
Is there anybody from the public that would like to talk on this
Just say.
added item to the agenda?
Mary Hasley, 726, I saw 8 written down, my eyes. 726 North Shore Drive. I'm happy to see this, but I'm quite frustrated because I actually raised this specific issue about planning commissioners putting comments on Facebook probably about a year ago to Griffin, and I can dig up the email, but I was told time and time again, well, maybe just a couple times, that the city cannot control what planning commissioners put on Facebook. But from what I hear tonight, there could have been a control. And there wasn't. There could have been a discussion about what is proper, and that appears not to have happened because planning commissioners have spoken over the last year about Overton, and that was an active item before the Planning Commission. There was a vote just in February this year. So I'm very concerned that this is just now being brought up with regard to short-term rentals, because there now appears to be a bias about what will and will not get the attention of the city to keep people aligned with ensuring the trust of the city. I just am very disappointed that it took this long for the city to step up and talk about what is proper and what is not. And I think what's most insultive is that one planning commissioner said to a friend of mine, when she said Overton project to put the dog whistle away because of the use of the word project with regard to Overton. I then searched the city database and found several documents in which the city identified the Overton situation as the Overton project. And there was never an apology, and I find that completely unacceptable and improper actions of a planning commissioner. I hope that this discussion reinforces the duty and obligation of planning commissioners and what you are supposed to do, because over this past year, I have not seen that equally exemplified by planning commissioners currently sitting on this board. And I'm looking at you, Chairman, not because it's directed at you, but because we're supposed to direct our comments to you. I didn't want to be any inference. Last but not least, I think with the Open Meetings Act, I think there's supposed to be a notice so that people know what topics are going to be discussed, and I think it's supposed to be published at least 18 hours before it's put on discussion, so I'll just leave it at that.
Yes. Okay. Anyone else? No? All right. Commission member and staff comments and training report.
The only comment I have, I should say I do have two comments. My first one is I just want to welcome Kelly this evening. She's been a great addition to our team in the short time she's been here already. Was surprised to see that this is her first planning commission meeting because sounds like we got delayed last week with spring break and the timing of her starting. She got a little bit of a break the first couple weeks before we had some work like this. So she's been a great addition to our team. I hope you all get a chance to meet her. We're very fortunate to have folks like Kelly and Luke and Brad on our team here at the city. The second comment I have is tangentially related to the conversation that was just had, related to the Planning Commission bylaws. So in the message that Todd read, he did quote some example bylaws that Michigan State Extension makes available, and that led to city staff also digging up and taking a look at the existing bylaws that the Planning Commission has in place. My understanding is the last time those bylaws were updated was 2012. And it looks like much of what's in those bylaws is current practice. There's a few things we may want to take a look at. So just want to throw that out, that might be another item that we can bring before the Planning Commission at some point in the future, just to take a refresher at the existing bylaws we have in place and either reaffirm them in their current form or have a conversation about what of those items may need updated based on changing times and so on and so forth. So that's something I'd like to give you all a friendly heads up about, that I think we'll be taking a look at bringing those before you all at some point in the future. Mm-hmm. Other than that, I have no other comments.
Okay. Anybody else on staff? No? All right, let's start with Larry.
Welcome, Kelly. You can phone, you can email, you can text, but don't post anything because I'll never see it.
Janice?
Welcome, Kelly. It's very nice that you're here with us, and I look forward to working with you.
Welcome, Kelly.
And welcome, Kelly. I'd like to reinforce what Griff says. I think that if you haven't had a chance to look at that work that the Michigan Extension Service has done around city planning, it's very interesting. There's a particular place I'd point you to. It's called neighborhood planning as an extension of city planning, and I think it's worthwhile to take a look at that at the Extension Service as well. It tends to make the planning process much more resident-centric, so I'd encourage that.
Welcome, Kelly. And first, before we go any further, I want to thank all of you guys. It's been an honor being a part of this group here. You guys, the work that you put in here and being a newbie really impressed me from day one, and I just want to thank you guys for that and appreciate the example that you guys set for a newbie. Thank you.
Okay, welcome Kelly and smile. Okay. Number 2, can we get her a nameplate? Or could we just get Brian's out and cross his name off and use it for a little while? Because staff is it's just so
Well,
not appropriate. You're so much better than just
that
staff.
chair changes quite a bit.
Oh, look.
Yes.
All right.
Yay. Oh, my gosh. I just asked and that happened. That is super cool. Yeah, anyways, so I so appreciate the conversation tonight, and you know me, if you ask my opinion, you're going to hear it. I'm sorry. And know that I'm not just arguing with you. I argue with everybody. You know that. So, Kelly, lovely to see you, and I will post that on Facebook, which poor Larry will not see later, just so you know.
Excellent packet. I feel very well informed when I come in here. It's really great. Thank you all. I agree with Lige. I've worked on a lot of committees and commissions. This is my favorite. Maybe it's just me. I'm changing. But welcome, Kelly, and thanks again.
Smile again.
Okay. I think I'm going to need some help from the back room here. Welcome, Kelly. And can I get one of those tighter shots? Not sure if that's going to happen here. I just want to say, no, not now with Kelly, with Clark. With Clark here. Up at me. I'm the important one. It'll happen.
There you are.
No, there we go. Kelly's my favorite to set. Just want to have that on record. I don't need to be tight anymore.
Yelling in the back room?
Yeah. I think I know what one of the items we do need to get at is the 3 to 5 minutes on the bylaws with what we handle here. And I know I'm the person that helped create the 5 minutes. And I think it was a tight vote and not necessarily popular, but that's my fault. I'm sorry. And that's true. And then, I certainly have got a lot of training and support from staff over the years. And I know within the last year with regards to Open Meetings Act and behaviors and how to handle ourselves. So I do want to give you guys that support as well. And thank you. I think I'm done.
Okay. Who was it we brought in for that training? Because it was multiple boards and the city council as well.
Was it MAP?
It
Somebody
was the
from MAP?
Michigan Municipal League, I think.
Is that who it was?
We've brought in
No.
a variety of different folks. I guess in the year and a few months that I've been here, I know we've brought in the Michigan Municipal League, who hosted a special meeting with the city council not 2 or 3 months ago at this point. I also believe in the last year, Michigan State Extension came in and did an Open Meetings Act training with the DDA. That would have been hosted in the middle of the day, but I do remember that an invitation to that was shared publicly. I also believe there is a video recording of both of those trainings available on our website.
That was going to be my next question, and that's what you guys need to watch.
But in
That'd be easiest.
terms of future trainings, again, to an extent, I'll leave that to the discretion of the Planning Commission. But we're happy to coordinate trainings that you all see fit in the future, and absolutely, I mean, refresher trainings based both on good governance practice, Open Meetings Act, Freedom of Information Act. All the way to specifics of planning and zoning. That's stuff we're happy to do. I know staff tries to send out training opportunities periodically to all of you. And again, the specific reason we have a training report out listed at the end of all of these agendas is in the case of anyone on the board maybe had an opportunity to attend a training that the rest of the Planning Commission wasn't able to. That's an opportunity to share what you've learned or shared that information with the rest of the group.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Probably the one point Mike made, and that's one of our first conversations. Well, we don't all travel in the same friendship circles. Small town, you do wind up at a lot of the same events. And the biggest thing to know is if there's a quorum, that's what can't be allowed to happen, and somebody has to leave. So,
And it's usually the new guy.
yeah. Yeah, that's our informal rule, the newest guy. You all paid $100 for the event ticket, but the guy has to leave.
I still had to pay their tab.
And this commission, a quorum is
Four.
four.
Yeah. Yep. So that's probably the biggest one in a small town that you can encounter. Not very often, but it could happen. All right. So with that, I think we had good discussion tonight. And that's about it. What's on tap? Do you know what's coming up next month? Anything in particular that I need to early prepare for?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, we've got food trucks coming back again, and we'll try to get that information out as soon as possible. Other than that, I'd have to go look at my whiteboard.
Okay. And when you do get that draft ordinance added to from tonight's, please send it early so I can look at it and have some time to really sift through this one. All right. With that, I'll entertain a motion to close.
I'll make a motion to end the meeting.
Adjourn.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to adjourn. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all.